All right, it's okay.
No minutes approved.
We'll have to put it on the agenda for next month. And by the way, Charlotte Todd's on the phone here. She's listening, so you can barge in anytime you want, Charlotte, okay?
Thank you.
My other planning board report, we really don't have anything to report our meeting tonight. We don't have any applications. We are discussing two ordinances, though, one about the height regulations and one about extension of approvals, for variance approvals. They'll be discussed tonight. Mike, I guess on the status of our environmental commission budget, do you have anything to say about that?
Yes, I do. Well, so when I watched the last meeting,
Okay,
I saw 3 issues that had come up.
okay.
Now, whether or not you want to cover all those today, I don't know. The budget was number 1, which I can quickly explain. The second thing that people wanted to hear about was the desal plant. I'm not sure if that's anything you want to hear about today or not. And the last thing, of course, was getting in front of council. So let me, you tell me if those are all things you want me to report on, and
Why don't you just talk about the budget?
the budget is very straightforward. It's a mechanical process. The budget was introduced by council, or by the finance and city manager on March 15th. This basically state requirements, so we will have a public comments session on April 5th. So the next council meeting, open to the public. The public can see the budget. It's on the website, so you can see all the details. And then we get to the approval date of, the anticipated approval date is April 19th. So that will be the following 2 weeks. On the 19th, we should, and I don't really see any difficulty because the budget's a good budget.
Do we have, what was our budgeted amount for?
You folks asked for 5,000, you have 5,000.
Good.
And I've already talked to Mike Vole about, as soon as that budget is approved, we'd need to get a check for $1,000 to Gretchen, you know, for the,
Ocean
yeah,
Festival.
the Ocean Festival. And he's aware of that. Of course, we'll have to remind him again. I'll do that as soon as the budget's passed.
Okay.
I'll just mention to him, please get a check cut for us.
Okay,
So we're all good there.
okay.
Nice, thanks. Yeah.
The only other money-wise that I think we might spend, later on, we're going to talk about possibly some kind of an Earth Day submission for the Star and Wave or something about like, what
Right.
kind of an ad that we,
And then there's
Okay.
also we talked about the brochure, the invasive plants brochure, which I'll get to later.
okay, all right.
Yeah, and water conservation, I don't know if you planned on anything, on spending money on any of that education process or not. That was mentioned
It's up
at
to
my
the-
first meeting, but,
We can do that if we
Yeah.
want.
okay.
I'd rather discuss that further when there's more people here.
When there's more people, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, anything else, Mike?
No, well, that's basically it. Again, we're going to have to talk about, I need to talk to this committee, and maybe we should do it when everybody else is here.
Okay.
But I need to hear about the last time this committee went to council and why it was. I heard of what the reasons were for rejecting the proposed ordinance on invasive plants. And so I guess what I'm looking for is, tell me why that didn't work well, and what do we want to do different? Because I won't be able to convince council if we don't come back with something different. there's no way I'm convincing council that they want to hear another presentation.
Well, I agree. We have to
So,
put something forth that's
I
going to work.
redrafted the one that we had, and I do have notes, if you want them now, or do you want to have another meeting about that later? We have
Well-
notes from our last meeting on that.
that's up to, if you want to wait until there are more people
I'd rather
together.
have a meeting when we have more people.
Yeah, and I agree. So I
Can't do this without more.
like a lot of input.
Right.
Hope was that you and Evelyn were rewriting the ordinance
Yeah.
itself, kind of combining things from both of them to
Right.
make it more,
Did we ever get a copy of the Cape May Point?
Yes, and,
Here's the Delaware one.
Okay.
and I
printed
have
it
the
out.
Delaware, well, I don't have the Delaware ordinance, I have material from Delaware, and I took Evelyn's version 2 and drafted version 3, which I have here with just a first draft, and I softened it a little bit. Because the main problem was that people were worried about having their privacy invaded.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think Councilmember Sheehan was concerned about enforcement as
Yeah,
well.
and that too.
So that would need to be spelled out pretty clearly.
And
Yes.
I dealt with that too a little bit in the redraft, but if you want to wait for more people.
Well,
It's an issue
the
with
draft-
most ordinances.
Can the draft be on part of a PDF so we can get it out to everybody and everybody can look at it?
Sure, I made copies. Can you PDF it? I can pass out copies
Yeah.
here now too, okay.
Well, copies are fine, but before the next
Sure.
meeting, so everybody has an idea of exactly
Well,
what it is.
Just
just
want
give me one,
Okay.
because I'll send out the
All right.
Delaware.
You'll see that I did not feel like the whereases and the therefores and other
We'll talk
parts,
about,
but I
we'll talk
didn't
about it in a
finish,
minute. We'll
but
talk
we'll
about
do
it in a
that.
minute when you're.
Okay.
But I'll get this out with these minutes and the Delaware.
And what about?
Interesting.
I
Sorry.
just read that Stone Harbor or Avalon or, they just passed an invasive,
Harbor, I think.
I think that I didn't see it, I didn't read it, it was just a quickie in the Herald, and I just,
Can you try and run that down to see which town actually did their approvals, and maybe we can get a copy of that ordinance?
I know that they were after bamboo more than anything, but I'm pretty sure
Charles, did you
it
hear
was.
about any other town having that ordinance passed?
No,
Okay, okay.
Yeah, okay.
So let's try and find that one out. So again, we're not trying to recreate the wheel. Let's
No,
just try and make
exactly.
something that's, again, baby steps.
Sure, no
Something
problem.
that's acceptable that we can get through and,
Yes.
and tweak it as we go.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else, Justine?
No?
Okay.
All right.
All right. And they wanted me to talk a little bit about the history of the Lafayette Street Park. We were in an advisory committee which was established back in April of 2018. We had members from the school board, local people here, and Shane Meyer was our liaison. And we met probably 25 times over a 2-year period. I presented 2 annual reports to council about what the status was. Every meeting we had, the engineer was present, so we really weren't doing anything that we didn't think that was out of hand. The engineer always had his thoughts on what we were doing. I'm just going to go through a couple things
Is
here.
that Craig Hurlis?
No, that was Mott McDonald.
Oh, okay.
And they actually had on staff, I can't think of his name now, Josh maybe, but he was up in North Jersey, but he just specialized in parks. That's all that he did. And I got along very well with Mott McDonald. The phases of it, Phase 1, which we had nothing, Phase 1 was already completed, which was in 2016. That was what you see out there now with the school, with the playground equipment. That was $1.5 million spent on that, and that wasn't part of our purview. They gave us we just had a blank piece of paper, and they said, figure it out. What can we do here? And so Phase 2 and 3 of the park included improvements to the park fronts along Lafayette Street and St. John's, and the soccer field, Dulles Field, and everything up to St. John's Street. We shifted the baseball field because it wasn't getting a lot of play, so we changed the direction of it so it would actually face the soccer field. And if you really wanted to have and we had it fit so that you could actually have say, a tournament game there if you wanted to, and set it up, and you have to but move the soccer goal, but it would absolutely be big enough to handle anything like that. And since it wasn't getting that much play, it really helped opened up the rest of the field down towards St. John Street. Now, I'm speaking here only because, first off, I'm not sure what the plan is now. Let me just go a little bit further step. And on what we proposed to have also was, major highlights of it were a U-shaped parking lot for 80 cars, fronting partly on St. John Street and Lafayette Street and parallel to Lafayette Street. 2 tennis courts. We had 2 bocce ball courts on this property. We had an extensive plaza area and with benches and located in a water fountain feature. Extensive. I mean, that was going to be like $250,000 plus. Proposed dog park, which would be two parks. One would be for little dogs, one for big dogs. We had, 2 tennis courts and 2 basketball courts on the site. We spent a lot of time getting it to fit, and I think it was going to fit pretty well. Funding, now that was phases 2 and 3. Phase 4, which is probably could be one of the most exciting parts of it, was to the rear of the school, where all the meadow and woodland were. We were going to have an elevated walkway out over the meadow, and for ecotourism, it would have been a big draw. I think that's still going to happen eventually, but the school board is definitely interested in that for education for their kids and whatnot, and the county is definitely interested in funding something like that. But that was also phase 4, and that was when COVID hit. We were all set to present something to CAFRA, a CAFRA plan, and then we started to hit some snags. One of the snags was out in phase 4. That originally was a golf course out there, and so that golf course, I'm sure, had all kinds of fertilizer and whatnot. So there may have been some pockets of stuff that was contaminated out there. So we had to start to re-examine what pockets there were, if there was any contamination, and the extent of it. And so that slowed that process down a little bit. And then at that point in time, which again, we as an advisory committee, we weren't privy to any of the big contamination issues that were part of the JCP&L right along St. James and Lafayette Street, and maybe further inward. I really don't know. But so that's when we stopped at that point between COVID, and then at the end of the year when the new council came in, we just disbanded our committee. So we were done then. Funding-wise, we had funding. Our whole intent was that we weren't going to try and spend anything that would cost the city any extra money. We had $1 million. Again, the first phase was funded and spent $1.5 million. We had about $1,177,000 grant from the county. We had a Green Acres loan. We had the Cape May City matching grants of $500,000 apiece, and there was another DOT grant that we were going to get at least half for. So we had about almost $2,400,000 in funding in place for that. The budget was about $3 million, okay, for phases 2 and 3. Phase 4, which was proposed again about $1.8 million to do all that platform work and whatnot, the county was going to fund that project entirely also, but I don't think it ever got to fruition because things just slowed down. So much of this was going to be funded, but again, you have to dot the i's and cross the t's, so you never know till you get down to the point. But the county was pretty good about helping us get started. As far as I know, we still have that money available, but again, I was never invited to those meetings, so I really don't know. That site is a combination of the city owns some land, the school board owns some land, which the city has the rights to through a lease arrangement, and JCP&L owns some land right along St. John's and Lafayette Street. There is one site, one part of that project, which is Blue Acre funded. It's a flag-shaped lot, which is absolutely cannot be built on. So we figured that it could be an open field, or you could have like a walkway over it, which was sufficient. So we filtered, we played in with that, and we got it to work right within where we had an open field area. So that was going to fly. But then all this stopped, and now I don't know the status of. Now, talk lately is now they're going to put the police station at St. John's and Lafayette, maybe. So I don't know the status of the rest of the plan that we had, whether it's going to be just moved a little bit. I really don't know. Eventually, that's going to come out pretty quick, I would think. What else can I say about that? We worked hard at that. Whether it was the right idea to put a park there or not, that was out of our purview. We were charged with a blank piece of paper, put a park here. If there could have been other buildings there, I mean, retrospect, I mean, it may have been nice to have a public safety building there, everything. But in retrospect, that's, who knows? Now we're past that. Now, hopefully, Phase 4, where the walkway is out over the meadows, I think that's really a good hook. I think that's something that we can, the ecotourism part of that is something that I think is really going to be beneficial to the city. Environmentally, our environmental commission, I think, would be heavily involved in that portion of it, which is nice. Anybody have any questions about that? I mean,
It may be a little bit off topic. I'm wondering if during the discussions, the Wise Anderson designation is going to somehow be remained, the
oh, yeah,
sign or
absolutely,
some.
Absolutely. I mean, that was part of the, well, I can read you the language that I put in the, there was no question that even the Dallas name was still going to be heavily involved in that. I forget what the language that I put in that, but it was certainly,
I believe you. That's all right.
What's the next step?
Yeah.
well, I really don't know. I mean, we were an advisory committee, okay, so eventually, we were going to have to just hand it to council and say, here it is. Now you guys have the authority to do what you want with it. It wasn't our authority to do it. We had a liaison with our council person there, but ultimately, they're probably going to take a lot of that because the engineer was heavily involved, but I don't really know for sure. But the Wise Anderson and the Dallas name was absolutely going to be part of the, I mean, certainly the basketball courts areas was probably named there, something about the Wise Anderson, and something maybe in the open space where the baseball field was going to be where the Dallas, some kind of a monument to the Dallas family there, because that was there for years. That was never going to be forgotten. The overall park would be named probably Lafayette Street Park.
Yeah.
But again, that's up to council purview, it wasn't ours.
Sure. That's just, so I drove by there the other day and it reminded me, and I'm sort of immersed in all of this Black history now, so it was on the top of my head and I wanted to make
Oh,
sure.
no question. And
Oh, good.
Linda Town Anderson was on our committee. so
Oh,
she-
well,
she was involved.
there you go.
I mean, Hillary Pritchard and the school
Yeah.
board members, Mark and Sharon Lemonnier, we had a
Right.
pretty broad group.
Yeah.
Okay? And, hi.
In that situation, there wasn't any discussion of landscaping yet so far.
Oh, yeah, well, we had it really, we
I'm just
really
thinking
had,
shade.
we tried to make it, we were all set to go with that kind of stuff. Again, we were really raring to go, and the CAFR application was going to be, but it never did.
Oh,
Then COVID hit, and then some of these environmental issues hit, and so I'm not sure where we stand on that. The park's going to happen. I'm sure it's going to happen, and just eventually,
Oh,
we'll have to see where it goes.
It's very exciting. Sounds neat.
It was a nice project to work on it, but again, it's out of our hands now. I mean, all what I just said could have been, I don't know if it's going to ever happen, but I mean, that's what we started with.
It probably will, given the interest in revitalizing Broad Street and the whole housing area there. I mean,
Well, see, that's
it's
part of the-
adjacent.
Yeah, it just works right into it.
Well, or
It makes
hopefully.
sense.
Part of that project also was that we were, at the same time, we were going to have a cutout at the school So they would be able to, drop kids off there. And the school they were going to work with us, and we were widening and taking care of Lafayette Street, which is a county road. This is all going to be done in tandem as we did that. And so they'd be able to drop off kids. It was to be a cutout out of their own park property, out of their own city property, which would have been nice too. That's also probably going to happen.
Seems like also that
But
the
it's just a matter
parking
of-
lot is going to answer some of the questions that people had about Franklin Street School.
What's that?
The parking lot that you designed or
Well,
advised on.
I'm not sure what's going to happen now.
I know,
because
but that answers the, where are we going to park to go to the library
Well, listen,
at Franklin Street?
The park has to have parking.
It does.
I mean, there's
right?
no question, it has to
Oh,
have
no.
parking somewhere, or else this DEP, they won't look favorably upon this,
Mm-hmm.
because they have to be able to get there and use it, especially on Phase 4 of that walkway. You got to have people who are going to want to go out and bird watch out there. They're going to
Right.
have to have someplace to park
Right.
to do that.
So it also answers that, what's the word, access to the Franklin Street School when it's a library. That'd be
Part of it, I mean,
easy.
it's not right there, but it's close.
No, but it's close enough, yeah.
We had 80, was it 80 or 84 parking spaces?
That's a lot.
It is what, and that
Yeah,
was,
I haven't seen the current plans, but I do know that there's a 90-space
Okay.
parking lot that will be
That's
part of
great.
I mean, I have our old plan here, but that's our old plan. I don't know if it's anywhere near what's going to happen, but let's hope that, that's even if they put the police building there.
Oh, God.
I don't know. Go ahead, Charlotte. Yeah, Charlotte.
Do you have a minute for me to talk about some history?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so the Environmental Commission is responsible for updating what's called an environmental resource inventory every 7 years for the city. And the last one was completed in September 2017. That Environmental Commission membership did see that it was important to enter into that log something called a species inventory along Cape Island Creek. So in the spring and the summer of 2015, a hired environmental consultant did an inventory of the trees, the shrubs, the perennials, the species of reptiles, amphibians, mammals, birds. All of those are contained in our environmental resources inventory. And in particular, we had an awful lot of trees and shrubs that supported these species. And with the contamination and with the cleanup, many of that whole area is now gone. If you can recall looking, say, behind the dog park and over to your right, you would remember that there were any number of huge trees and in particular shrubs along the Cape Island Creek itself. So with the absence of that vegetation, we certainly did lose a lot of area for some threatened and endangered species. That's just in addition to this particular cleanup. So as things go forward, I wonder if council will be talking to JCP&L about putting back some of that tree line and shrubberies as part of what needs to necessitate support for our threatened and endangered species.
Well, we can approach Mike about that later, about that, but I think as part of the plan that the city's going to have to, that they want to do going forward with the park, that'll all be part of that process, Charlotte. I mean, that area to the left of, well, to the very extreme out to the meadow, that has to be watched carefully, because that's where a lot of the the water flow goes after it's cleaned up. I mean, that's like a monitoring area out there. That little building out there, there's a little building out there, that's a monitoring area that has to be, they keep watching that, I think, to see about the extent of any new contamination or whatever, I think. I mean, I'm not an engineer. But it's so noted about trying to figure that out, Charlotte.
Thank you.
You want to talk about your invasive species?
Sure. Again, I guess if you want to, again, I can give it to Merrill to,
Well, I think just
well,
as long as we have it for the next, so we can PDF,
Sure.
they can print it out and we can look at it
Okay.
and really have a good handle on where we think we're going to go.
I-
And look, I agree with Mike. You got to have something that's different than the last one, but that's got meat on it that we're satisfied with.
sure. Again, as we say, I tersed it up a little bit and softened softened isn't the right word, but kind of reworded the enforcement and the inspection section so that it's very clear.
You have the hard copies, we can hand those out.
Yeah,
Yes.
can I keep my own copy?
Absolutely. Probably has good notes.
Thanks. So again, it's a draft, and I didn't do all the whereases and therefores because that's, we all know what that is. And I wanted to, in the draft that we had before, we listed the dirty dozen right in the ordinance, and I'm not sure what the legalities of that are, but I think it should be an attachment, an addendum, and it should be in there. And then we have to change that dirty dozen list a little bit. Examples include, for example, says, but are not limited to, and then we can just go on with it from there. Control of growth,
The Cape May Point ordinance had just to deal with ivy, right?
that was just ivy.
Okay.
And I brought that in to this one and into the brochure as well. This one is more the ordinance that was originally written and did not, in this body right here, it does not say ivy, but the attachment, if we can do that legally, the attachment would obviously mention ivy. And I just want to say a little word about ivy. I've been driving around town in the last couple of days. You could make a horror movie from the amount of English ivy that has invaded this. It is terrifying. And I just thought, we just need an English ivy eradication committee just to get, it's on city trees. It is
I
everywhere.
could attest to that.
It's terrifying. It's like Hitchcockian, you could do, anyway. But that would be included in that list that I suggested be an attachment. And again, I don't know what the law is on this, how you have to write an ordinance, whether it have to be in the body of the ordinance or whether it would have to be an attachment. But that would be a little less intimidating, I think, if we did it that way. And then the numbers, you say I didn't number them because the control of growth is about the same. Failure to control the spread of any invasive plant, and that is beyond the boundaries of the property owner, is a violation of this chapter. You're only obviously able to apply a property owner to the property, not to next door, so that my next door neighbor's ivy that is growing in my yard is not his fault. This is where we ran into trouble before, where people were worried about the inspections. And so what we have now is all places and premises in street view of the city of Cape May shall be subject to review by duly authorized member of the Environmental Commission. And that's our suggestion, that it be a designated member or any member of the Environmental Commission, and then referred to the enforcing officer. And it will be, if they have reason to believe that there's a violation, you have to be really careful that there is an absolute violation and that it is not in a person's backyard, even though it would be nice if we could do that, but I think that addresses some of the worry that members of the Environmental Commission would be tramping through people's backyards. let me see where else I changed it. All right, and, so, and then the enforcement property is a written violation notice shall be given, and there's a time limit, and it must be taken care of, and the cost is that of the property owner, which is probably going to make some people nervous as well. But we have that rule, don't we, about broken sidewalks? They must be fixed, but it is at the cost of the property owner, not the city.
It's 50/50.
Oh, it is now, okay.
Yeah,
It's been a
any
long time since.
well, no, it's a broken sidewalk as a result of a city tree.
Tree,
Yeah, shade
Yeah.
tree.
okay,
So,
okay. And as you can see by looking at it, that I did not fill in all the language from the version 2 that Evelyn had already drafted, just because I wanted this to be a draft, but I can certainly do that if you want to see that in a final form, if you want, in a PDF form, that I can.
I'm amazed that a Bradford pear is an invasive species.
You know what, I wrote that down, but I don't think it is. Is that
It
true?
is.
It is, okay.
So,
It's not
I
a
mean,
very
it's,
good plant, but
it's not, yeah, I mean,
it's not a highly, it's not, it is
It
actually
is, I
invasive?
mean, and if you go into my development, we have like 40 of them.
yeah.
And just like butterfly bush, many species can become invasive.
Okay,
I think, again, it's not like you have one, we're going to make you have to cut it down. But they can go into, open spaces and fields
Yeah.
and so.
Oh, okay.
So I could, if you're driving down Ferry Boulevard on the way to Acme, they're there in the
Yeah.
fields. You can see them.
that's true, that's right. Yeah, it's hard to spot right now. Okay, so that's, so we would have to, I think, and this would come later, we'd have to modify that invasive list a little bit, so that we've confined it to what's visible, what's important inside the city.
Yeah, and it just becomes a case of what becomes a nuisance, an aggressive plant. Can you have an invasive species like English ivy in your yard that you maintain and don't allow to climb up your neighbor's tree? Maybe in that situation, it's okay. It's when they become nuisance plants. I'm still trying to get you some more examples of invasive species ordinances from other locations. I sent an email to a colleague who does that for New Jersey Audubon. Still waiting. I'm sorry, I don't have anything to give you yet. As soon as I get that, I'll send that on to you.
The problem with writing this kind of legislation is that I don't know how to do it. I was talking to my husband about it, and he does it, not for plants, but for other things, and I said, some of the language is, you have to be really careful, and if it's too loose, it doesn't work. If it's too tight,
Well, look, eventually we can work with our solicitor to
yeah.
figure that out.
To
You
get the
you
language.
hand it to him, and
Yeah, he'll do the final.
he'll
Right.
quickly give you
Right.
But we do have but I would like
Lingo.
to, in conjunction with what your Cape May Point ordinance, I would love to see that. We could scan that and get it to everybody so we can see how they read it, how they word it.
And I just gave Meryl the one from Delaware.
And the one from
Okay, great.
Delaware, and
I
whenever,
have the one from Delaware, and Gretchen, do you have Cape May Point?
I thought you had Cape May Point's ordinance.
No, I have the Cape May Point brochure.
Charlotte, I think, has Cape May. All right,
We need the
I'll
ordinance
find
from Cape May Point, and also whatever, if there was another one from, and Mike had mentioned that there may have been one in Avalon or Stone Harbor recently approved.
I'll look them up.
Okay.
Okay.
Because I would like to have those scanned, everybody can look at them, and it makes it be a heck of a lot easier.
Yeah.
If I find them, I'll send them over to
Okay.
Meryl. That's
Very good.
fine.
Okay. And then I also worked on the brochure, and that was based on the one from the Point, and a couple of others. And this one I tersed up a lot, but also made it a little bit more direct. And I give that to Meryl also to put out, and I have copies here as well.
Were you going to, just remind me, was
No,
that
please.
going to be to reprint the brochure to
Yeah.
expand on it? Because I know West Cape May had a lot of them, and they're out there. And they would be happy to give them to us to distribute.
That's, if they're already out there, I see no problem with that. I just kind of went over that, and I combined vines and the vine article and the plant article into one,
Sorry.
but basically kept everything else the same. And then I went over to Colonial House this morning, where the garden club maintains the garden, and found that it has been completely invaded by mugwort. So in case you're looking for mugwort, there it is. So if the West Cape May one is already there, it's silly to write another one.
Well, I'll reach out and find out, what their supply is. I think we've got a case at the Nature Center, and we hand them out. And I know at the Ocean Festival, that's one of the things that they were going to have at their table. But when their supply gets low, maybe it's an opportunity to reprint it. And we could look at the printing costs. Maybe it could be a joint effort in all of the Cape Island
We're
environmental
going to
commissions.
distribute this, and what was our intent of how to distribute this?
I'll tell you, the truth, I would love to see it in everybody's mailbox. I don't know if we can do that. I think handing it out, obviously, at the Nature Center and any kind of public event, street fairs, crafts is fine. I would really like to see it much more definitive than that.
I don't know.
I don't know.
In the past, I know the city has done additional inserts for, whether it's the tax bill or the water bill comes as a postcard, so it's not an envelope. I have no idea if the city could help with sending to homeowners.
Well, I'm sure the city does mailings. Now, I'm not sure how we would actually put it in with their mailings.
No. I'd walk along the street and put it in people's mailboxes.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't
The
know.
Environmental Commission covers the cost of the printing and maybe any additional postage or something, but the city would have to help us with
Yeah.
tax records to send out. I don't know. We can ask.
Well, but again, as long as we have the one now, it makes sense to just use it, and then when it's over, maybe we can, redraft one. It's a little bit shorter, but keep the illustrations and the lists of plants, and again, which again has to be modified a little bit, I think.
At the last meeting, I think it was Charlotte said there was the ordinance 1170/99.
I've been trying to get it from upstairs. I've asked 2 weeks ago, 3 or 4 times, and they haven't given it to me yet.
So we have no idea if it's actually being adhered to.
Well, the one I worked from here is 404/2020.
This is the one
No,
outlining
you're
that
exactly right. It was ordinance
anyone who appears before the planning
1170-99. That was the one.
zoning
Wow.
board receives a list of native species. So we don't even know.
Look, I tried to get it from upstairs. Again, they've had council meetings or whatever, but I haven't been able to get it from Erin yet.
Okay.
I'm
She's
sorry,
promised
that's
it
a
to me.
list
She's
of
promised- No, it's an actual
species?
ordinance that describes, Charlotte, what's in that ordinance exactly? You've seen it.
Yes, I recall that,
I have it right here.
Whoa.
discussed in November 2020 at a council meeting.
Is that it?
Yes, Charlotte provided it in a
At
package.
that point,
just
I
got
believe it
this.
was tabled
She did, didn't she?
because there wasn't a consensus to go forward with it. And the Environmental Commission was charged to come back with some revisions. Either that or the attorney at that time said, perhaps you can push this forward and then let people in the audience talk about whether or not they felt it was applicable to the city of Cape May, their likes and dislikes about it. But in the end, it was tabled.
Me to send it there.
Listen, I apologize. What's one hand doing, the other hand's doing? That is the ordinance that I've been trying to get.
Well, she may have had this, this
Probably.
is again some stuff that Charlotte sent along for me. She may have had it a long time ago. It's in this,
So what this looks like is there have been, quick count, 3, maybe 4 ordinances that have been at some point proposed about invasive species, and none have gone past the tabling step. Is that accurate?
Is this particular, one-
Historically, Charlotte, I don't know.
is this one on,
I didn't quite, it was that hope, I couldn't.
Yes.
Yeah. I was wondering if this one never passed either, is that correct?
No, this was passed. This-
It was passed.
This is in effect.
So we have one on the books.
We just don't
No,
know
but it's
if
not-
it's
it's not
being
invasive species.
enforced. Like, are people who apply for permits actually being given this information?
and this is about those suggesting native,
I'm sorry, is this is the one on construction and,
Correct.
oh, yeah.
and so that's great. That is something that should be happening.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
addressing new construction.
yes.
Yes,
But the majority are homeowners are not new construction, so we need to
that's right.
get to the people that have existing homes and existing gardens and existing invasive species problems and educate them.
Right.
So we have to do that through some kind of public education campaign. And if it's expanding on the brochure, you got to get it in their hands.
Yeah.
Can I stand that?
We're gonna get it to everybody.
Okay, great.
We did see that. I saw-
Positive side, I think that it's really important for the public to know what to plant for pollinators, for honeybees, for butterflies. What sort of plants are most important for pollinators? And give them that sort of information as well.
Didn't last month, wasn't it suggested that maybe this could go entirely through the construction office for any construction permits?
Well, we were gonna see first what the ordinance said, and then I was gonna go down and see, I was gonna go downstairs and see what the building department actually does do. Which now that I have this, we can see if they, we can see what they tell their new construction people about that ordinance, if anything.
I do remember that we talked about this, I think, and we said, well, to give this to builders actually isn't very effective because the builders hardly ever do the planting. This has to go to the
Landscapers.
to landscapers and to the homeowners, because the homeowners will say, well, put this here and put over there and do this and do that. And so they have to know what not to do, and then so do the landscapers.
Yeah, but builders can add it to their contract. I mean, just as information at the end of the contract. There's no reason for them to not do that. It's just an informational type thing.
Right.
Landscapers, unfortunately, some are licensed, some have mercantile licenses here in the city. Most don't.
Oh, really?
Because they are big and they go other areas, so they're licensed by the state. So we don't really have a lot of control over them, but we know who they are. I mean, there's a way to communicate with them, for sure, but
Well, this is where the whole public education aspect of it comes in. If people need to know right away what not to do and then move on to pollinators. But I think the first thing we have to do is to say, don't put English ivy in your front yard. And there's this very brief list here of vinca and loosestrife and a couple of other things. That's easy enough to educate people to do in the first place, and then move on from there.
I'll stop down, since I have this ordinance now, I'm gonna stop down to the construction department, see what they actually do. If they, I'm not sure what they do. But certainly, if this is on a checklist and this is given to the property owner or somebody, at least they'll see it. And then hopefully, some of it might, you know,
There
Pay
might be
attention to it.
some verbiage in it that you could reuse
Yeah.
in your ordinance as well.
And then, so then we have to move, after this is done, then it becomes the inspection and enforcement aspects of this ordinance and how far we can go without scaring people.
All right, let's,
I thought I had 3 things to send out, and I only have 2 here. Did I give you? I don't know. Oh, no, it was this one. Okay, sorry.
Oh, the brochure, right?
all right, I would suggest that we look at these, let's get these ordinances,
Yeah.
and look at what this is, and at the next meeting, we'll try and see what we think is a way forward.
Mike, I can send these out tomorrow,
That's fine.
All right.
But I mean, I like,
ahead of the minutes.
that's great, rather, sooner the better, because then we can just, you can be thinking about it.
Well, then we can hold off on this, the ordinance that I redrafted from the draft, until we look at the other ordinances.
Absolutely correct.
Okay.
All right, one of the last things, Charlotte, you want to comment on what you thought about Earth Day? Some kind of a submission, some kind of a history of what we want to do for that day, maybe?
Well, it's really wonderful that Justine will, give us some background information about cleaning up bodies of water. And I was hoping, too, that we would know more about the Rutgers project in terms of oysters and their role in cleaning up bodies of water. And then lastly, we have an Earth Day. It's, it's put on the calendar. It's April 22nd. And now that's 52 years ago that was started. And I think it might be interesting for the public to realize and to reflect on the fact, as we look at the environment worldwide and even in the city of Cape May, where it's most important to us, what does this whole thing of Earth Day, why did it come about? The history of Earth Day. And if we could possibly think to have some explanation in the newspaper, along with suggestions for people, such as we have in Exit Zero, only a little bit more elaborately, in terms of saving water, because we certainly do have water ordinances, and we have a number of wonderful ordinances that people may not remember are on the books. And it would help them to go forward. Certainly we can remind them that planting in their backyards is important to keep us healthy. For any of the species use, even insofar as hanging your towels on the line to dry. Just simple hints for Earth Day. And wondering if the commission thinks it's a good idea to have a reminder in the newspaper about this history and so forth for April 22nd.
I don't
Can
have
I-
a problem doing it, somebody needs to write it.
Can I add to that? So on Earth Day this year, we're going to have a little ceremony at the Nature Center with the city to mark the signing of our lease, the renewal of our lease. That happened in December, kind of when things were quiet and nobody was around to really have a ceremony. So we put that off until Earth Day, so at 11:30 on the 22nd at the Nature Center. There'll be representatives from New Jersey Audubon and the city of Cape May. Just have a little ceremony. We happen to have a kids, it's kind of like a spring break nature camp going on that week, the week before and week after Easter. So we'll have kids there on site. And so we're putting that together. I was put in contact with the city's marketing person to work on a press release. So, yeah, the more the merrier. Give me information about what we want to say. We can expand the article maybe, I'm sure we could get at least a front page of the Star and Wave, but we'll try to spread it around to other newspapers as well and social media. So what is the story we want to tell?
So this would be, this would,
Happy to submit something to Gretchen or to you all. Since I actually was born then, many of you, that's one of the advantages, I guess, of having birthdays. So I kind of recall some of that Earth Day beginnings and be happy to submit some things
Yeah,
if
what-
you'd like.
why don't we do that, and we'll just get it, and we'll make it part of whatever you want to do for that day. We could just make it part of that advertisement or whatever.
Yeah, it's a
Sure.
good idea.
Let's just, you got
And
that, Charlotte? Is that okay?
Sure, should I send it to Gretchen or?
I would think so. I would send it to Gretchen, only because
Okay.
we'll, that marketing person from the city is probably going to have some ideas of what they want to.
Somebody's got to write the press release, and it's either going to be the city, or I'll get my husband to do it, since he writes columns for the Star and Wave. And we'll work on an article, and it's a month away, so we need to get that
And I think-
done
I
soon.
And somehow, I think there was some like $125 for a quarter page, $250 for a half a page, and $500 for a full page. Now, I don't know whether we're going to pay for that, or the city can put it in their budget. I don't know, or which budget it's going to come out of, but I don't know.
You mean an ad?
Not an ad, but whatever.
Something.
However we're going to present this.
Oh, I think we could talk them into just an article for the Star and Wave.
Yeah.
It's any other paper.
All right.
Yeah. To me, it's a news story. To me, yes, we signed another 25-year lease.
So Charlotte, you got a few
So-
weeks to put that together, okay?
No, really,
No, not less
soon.
than a month.
A week.
All right.
We need to get it together so that, yeah.
It's the end of March almost.
By
And
the
anything
way,
else,
our
if there's
next
any-
Meeting is after, is the 26th,
Right.
Right.
so it's after that.
Yeah, we need the information soon, like in about a week.
Yeah.
And if there's any other kind of environmental news that we can share, of course, we'll share that we've got the upcoming Cape Island Ocean Festival. We have our Monarch Festival in the fall, which, talking about pollinator gardens, and it is really all about, gardening for wildlife and sharing your yard with migratory birds and butterflies. So we have that date. We can start promoting that now. We have our plant sale, which happens 2 weeks after Earth Day. So a lot of things that can be part of the story.
Charlotte, what were you thinking in terms of the Rutgers project with the oysters? My uncle was very involved with that over the course of several years, and if you're looking for someone to come in and talk to us about it, I think he might be open to the idea.
Fabulous, wonderful.
Yeah, okay. I'll reach out to him.
All right, and so, all right, so you're going to get something to Gretchen about whatever we want to do for that, for Earth Day, okay. And Justine, next month, you're going to talk about that, cleaning up the water bodies? Is that
Yeah,
okay?
I did, just so you have some idea of what this is, I printed these out for everyone because they sound like very strange pieces of technology. So, I don't know if I passed that in there. One more?
One more.
Almost. I've got it. Thank you. Yeah. I have no idea if it's feasible or not, but it's something we can talk about.
Okay.
Cool.
Anybody have anything else?
Just on the record that April 9th is the beach sweeps throughout the state, and we're doing Cape May Harbor is the Nature Center's location, and I'm pretty sure Lower Cape May Regional High School does the Cove.
Okay.
So 9 o'clock on the 9 to noon on the 9th. And we also do like more than just the harbor. We do property cleanup of the Nature Center, which is a city-owned property. So we do that. Hopefully, we've got Coast Guard recruits coming out. And also, sort of related, that you should know that on April 2nd, there is a Blessing of the Waters ceremony at Cape May's Fishermen's, Blessing of the Waters ceremony at the Cape May Fishermen's Memorial. I think it's noon. Is it noon?
11 or?
11?
Can't-
And tomorrow, I've got some Coast Guardsmen going out to do like a preliminary cleanup of trash around at least the memorial area.
A friend of mine is working on, sorry. I always want to say Doctors Without Borders, but it's the local
Volunteers in Medicine?
Volunteers in Medicine. Unbeknownst to me, they have a garden behind their headquarters. And she just sent me some information about it, and then she sent me this one. There's a group called Wild Ones. Do you know about that? So I just printed out a little bit. Wild Ones, a Southern New Jersey seedling chapter. It's brand new, and it sort of has the same aim that all of the rest of us do. So I copied a little bit of it if anybody is interested in it.
Seedling what?
Wild Ones is the name of the organization, and they have chapters throughout New Jersey, and this one is called the Southern New Jersey Seedling Chapter because it's new. Working to promote environmentally sound landscape practices to preserve biodiversity through the preservation, restoration, and establishment of native plant communities.
You want to add it to my collection? of
Sure, why
things to send out?
She just sent it to me as a part of the conversation we were having.
Right.
She's actually looking for
I'll
people to
send-
help rejuvenate the gardens at Volunteers in Medicine, but that's another question.
I'll do the handouts tomorrow and the minutes whenever.
That's fine. Anybody have anything else?
If it is 11 a.m., the Blessing of the Waters.
Okay.
Bong, we're out of time.
Okay.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll
So
make a
moved.
motion.
I'll second.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike.
Oh, anytime.
Turn your mics off. We, we have a dirty dozen. I don't think that's changed much.
Can I help you with that?
Well, the garden club.
I know they,
Okay.
and I had reached out through Facebook that I saw that, and I had mentioned that we're ordering wholesale, native plants.
Wow, it'd
So-
be great if they knew about that, whatever, yeah.
But I'm putting in my pre-order to reserve the plants that get delivered at the end of April. I have to put that in now. So if there is something special, what I offered that I could pass on our wholesale rate, just probably add a little bit to cover the shipping, that I can help the city with that.
Okay.
I mean, I
I'm
know
not
there's
sending
members
this
of the
out
garden
because
club
this
that
is-
know these things,
Just send it
but
out.
I've got a wholesale